Hi everyone, welcome to another SGC Webinar Series brought to you by SEGi Group of Colleges. My name is Ling. I'm the moderator of today's sessions. Welcome to this live webinar titled Adapting to Covid-19, the Business Chameleon Effect, brought to you by SEGi Group of Colleges and University of Sunderland. Before we begin, I would like to do a quick tech check. Can everyone hear and see me clearly? Please type yes if you can. Meanwhile, I would appreciate if you could comment below where you are connecting from, as we know that we will have friends from other countries, UK and Indonesia. We have a lot of friends from other countries as well. So we appreciate if you could inform us that where you are connecting from. Thank you, everyone. For those of you who have just joined in, I welcome you once again to this live webinar titled Adapting to COVID-19, the Business Chameleon Effect. My name is Ling, and I will be your host today. A quick briefing to everyone before we start. Our sessions today should take approximately an hour. During the sessions, we encourage you to type your questions in the comment sections below towards the end of the sessions, and our speakers will try to answer your questions during the Q&A sessions and at the end of the webinar. We would also like to inform everyone that this webinar is recorded and will be used by SEGi University and Colleges and its subsidiaries in the future. For your information, a joint certificates will be issued to you by SEGi College Subang Jaya and University of Sunderland, and the links will pop out at the end of the sessions for you to fill out the information for us to issue the certificates for you. Is everyone ready for the webinar? If you're ready, please press 1. Okay, let's go. Our topics for today is adapting to COVID-19, the Business Chameleon Effect. And our speakers today is Dr. Derek Watson. Let me share with you a little bit about our speakers for the day. Dr. Derek Watson is an associate professor and senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy, founders of the faculty's business clinics, and the doctoral lead for the university's Research Fridays programs. His research focuses on cultural compliance and academic industry collaborations, investigating the impacts of knowledge exchange on practice in both the classroom and the workplace. Dr. Watson has an international portfolio of clients and contacts, such as British Cabinet Office, Indian Government's Councils of Scientific and Industrial Research, Dubai's Police and Canon International. Without further ado, let's welcome our speakers, Dr. Derek Watson.
Thank you, Cole, for that introduction and very kind words. Yes, so my name is Dr. Derek Watson from the University of Sunderland, and I'll be looking at how business are adapting to the COVID-19 scenario or pandemic. And I've titled the presentation, The Chameleon Effect. The presentation will have four clear aims. Firstly, I'll provide insights on how organisations are adapting in the UK and further afield. I'll also be looking at innovative approaches organisations are taking to help survive or grow whilst and certainly after the coronavirus pandemic subsides. I'll also talk to you about how organisations can change, or the leadership in organisations can change. And finally, and most importantly, with a big E, capital E, how do we bring our employees along to meet this challenge? So the pandemic. A lot of people feel quite surprised with the pandemic. But if we walk the pages of history, if we look at almost just over 100 years ago, in 1918, we had the Spanish flu, where over 50 million people, at least 50 million people, died through influenza. 1958, we had another pandemic with influenza, and that resulted in 2 million deaths globally in the organization. In 2003, we had the SARS pandemic. And also more recently, 2009, we had the swine flu, and 2012, we had the MERS. So the medical profession were crying out to governments around the world, predicting that there will be a virus X. They didn't know which virus it would be, but they knew it was definitely coming. And in 2019, the latest part of the year, we had the pandemic starting in China, Wuhan. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this slide is A, to raise the importance of the coronavirus and the challenges that we face, but also from a business point of view, there are always telltale signs out there, and it's critical for organizations, not just in Malaysia, the Middle East, and elsewhere around the world, but organizations need to horizon scan. They need to look to the future, as well as take care of today, but look to the future and identify what are the potential opportunities and what are the potential challenges. COVID-19 disregards cultures, and I've got two stereotypical cultures there, Malaysian and the UK, but it doesn't discriminate against cultures. And there are many businesses, and what I want to emphasize, although I'm an academic, I do run a business and have run several businesses in the past. So I know the plight that many organizations are in. But I'm choosing my words carefully here. Yes, it's rather like being depressed. Your friends can support you, your community can support you, but in the core light of day, it is you, your organization, your small to medium-sized enterprise, or your large multinational. You have to dig yourself out of this hole. Thankfully, a lot of other companies are in the same hole. So what I do encourage, we work together. We work together with potential competitors and other businesses in the sector or other sectors. So it's not just SMEs, it's the big multinationals. And last week, you may have heard about Branson, Richard Branson's company, Virgin Australia, had gone into deliberate liquidation. They are suffering problems with COVID-19. But it's not just the aviation industry, it's not just hotels, leisure, it is all business sectors that are struggling. So the question is, how do we trigger the energy, the catalyst, to create a positive reaction at the end? What are the steps that we need to look at? So if you look at management of your organizations, I fundamentally believe that there are 3 variables that you can control. You can control quality, you can control money, and you can control time. If you prioritize any one of these 3 variables, the other 2 will suffer. So for example, if your priority is, or your driver for your business or service is quality, it takes more time and more money to make quality. So if you're going for quality, time and money will suffer. If you are looking at price, if price determines your products or services, you'll have to give up more quality and do it with much less time to produce that cheaper product. If time is your driver, you'll have to work quickly. If you're working quickly, that will invariably affect your quality. And if it affects your quality and affect your pricing as well. So here are some examples. I'm going to a couple of slides and I'm going to pepper out some examples of how organizations, SMEs, large multinationals, it's not confined to the UK, it's global, on how they are adapting to the current pandemic. We're seeing supermarkets, grocery stores, recalibrating their hours of opening to accommodate for the elderly, to accommodate for those in the emergency services, and also giving them time to stock the shelves. So there's a flexibility, or there's a recalibration of their opening hours. You've also got advertising agencies who are taking a severe blow with the coronavirus, with their current client base. So what they're doing is they're being quite innovative. They're creating smart web pages whereby they are targeting, and I want to emphasize this, they are targeting the local community, sharing data on which shops, restaurants, other retail outlets, which are open and which are closed. You also got a lot of gyms, yoga classes, wellness sessions that have had to go online. And this has been quite successful. It's been a learning curve, but they're seeing that they still can connect with their client base and maintaining that social distancing. You've also got organizations that are totally changing their line of business. A lot of us are working from home, and what we need to do, we need to utilize our space most efficiently. So now we're seeing an upshot of organizations actually going online, giving advice on how to redesign your workplace or your home workplace as well. Hairstylists, beauticians, obviously customers can't go to their establishments. So what they're doing is they are putting on online live consultations to individual clients, giving tips on, well, yes, your hair is growing because you can't get to a salon, but these are techniques on how to style your hair and also how to use cosmetics. And they will also send these out to you by way of mail. Other examples of organizations whereby they're changing their business model. A lot of microbreweries, for example, in Berlin, still producing alcohol, but what they've seen is they've seen the untapped gap and the catering for alcohol sanitizers. So they're not producing alcohol to drink, but they're producing sanitizers, which is proving successful, challenging, but successful. You've also got other retail organizations live streaming their production processes. For example, bakeries. So you can see the ingredients. And these bakeries are actually putting up home recipes and they're mailing out flour and other products, ingredients, so you can actually produce what you normally buy from the bakery at home. And also, as I said before, we're all working from home. A vast majority of us are working from home. So you're seeing consultants changing their business model on how to motivate the workforce through virtual platforms, how to develop motivation, how do you develop a team dynamic rather than a group dynamic where you've got the strongest at the top, weakest at the bottom, but developing a team dynamic. And these are very innovative. For example, they've launched fireside meetings or evening fireside meetings, and they include ghost stories as well. So it's very innovative. And these ideas need to keep evolving to keep your customers in tune. Discount codes. Now, there's nothing wrong with discount codes. They work very effectively. And there's a company in the United States that is saying, right, if you stay at home and place an order, we will deliver or curbside deliver, and we'll give you 10 or 20% discount. This is a company called Thunderpants, based in New Zealand. And what they're doing is they're trying to connect with their consumers and say, look, nominate someone for a competition who you think are being an amazing human being at this current challenging time. Those names go into a lottery, and each week they'll pull out a lucky name, and guess what? You get a free pair of Thunderpants. You've also got organizations, for example, candle makers or candle producers. they are selling not just the candle making equipment, but different products to complement that. So you're not trying to sell the consumer one product, you're trying to sell them several products at a discounted rate. Free shipping always works, and a lot more companies are realizing, yes, they'll bear the cost of shipping as long as your consumers are happy with the products and services. Crowdfunding, which many of you will have known, but yes, go to your local community. Advertise, tell them that your staff, you don't want to make them unemployed, but you're struggling for revenue, and would they contribute towards that funding stream? And that's proven quite successful. You've also got hotel chains and breweries who are using this lockdown to actually show the wider community how they treat their staff, how they support them from an ethical point of view. And the local community, with the pandemic, I would strongly suggest businesses, yes, think global, but very much at this particular time, think local. How can you connect with your local customers within that? And from charities, you're getting many organizations that are producing products. And if you buy X amount, you will donate a certain quantity to a charity as well. And they are publicizing that on a regular basis. Other examples, University of Sunderland, working very closely with the NHS in offering expert advice from our medical school. Our nurses are out there, our students, our labs are testing various products, experiments. Timson's Shoe Shop, based in the UK, they have guaranteed that they will pay their 5,500 workforce full pay until after the coronavirus. Lloyd's Pharmacy, they've recruited 1,500 extra staff simply to take the medication from the pharmacies to the house and keeping that social distancing. The Cooperative Society, which is a supermarket, they've recruited 5,000 individuals to help stock shelves and to make sure that the consumers are getting regular supplies of food. EasyJet have asked their staff to give them 3 months holiday, unpaid holiday, but at least they hopefully will have a job to come back to in the future. And Fuller's, the brewery and hotel chain, they have turned round to their landlords and owners to say, during the pandemic, we will not ask you for rent. So that is helping their businesses. So in summary, focus on online strategies, electronic promotions, join databases, scour the internet and identify which local databases you can tap into and network and work together, not in isolation. And I start off the presentation about the importance of working as a team, and that includes your competitors. We're all starting virtually at the same starting point. We need to work together to share our innovation and ideas within that. Reach out to customers, listen to what they are asking for and try to cater for their needs. So once again, you've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use that ratio. Observe and listen twice as much as what you say. Look at delivery services. These can be outsourced. You can use your local Uber networks, but try to use different methods to get your products seamlessly to your consumers. Look at the gaps. When I talk about gaps, a lot of businesses are now catering for the emergency services because of the shortness of PPE. So look at your production lines and look at your capacity. What else can you offer? And many of you doing this, move to online support, but ask the question, what are the barriers? So walk through that process, speak to your workforce, set up focus groups and ask them, how can we improve our online services? And meal kits, if you can't get the restaurants are producing recipes, ingredients, food. They'll mail it out to you or drop it off via a courier service with instructions how to cook the food. And they're generating revenue from that and connecting further and more clearly with their consumers. And the love chain. This is once again a local initiative whereby you purchase or you offer discounted cards to individuals for birthday cards, anniversaries, and so forth. But this is very much a local initiative for you to think about. And turning back the clock, traditional signage. look at your signage on your shop fronts and ask yourself, does it actually represent the business what we're offering now? Is it a true representation? But there's nothing wrong with good signage on there. Also, as I mentioned with the previous comment, Thunderpants set up competitions, and the winners receive a product, or if they buy a certain amount of products, then they're entered into a competition. So a question for the audience. First of all, which country is that? Hopefully you've got that quite quickly, the United States. Next question, what is the distance between Los Angeles and New York? Now I'll give you 2 seconds. Now I'll give you 5 seconds to think of that. Now what I want to do is you need to indicate on the feedback messages how many of you were thinking about going to your iPad or iPhone or phone, Android phone, to get the message. We are conditioned not to think, to access the internet for results. And if you look at the different social platforms, there are a ton of them out there. There are a bunch of platforms out there. And would you believe, every 2 seconds, 60,000 people tap into these social platforms. And social media is growing twice its size every 2 years. But if we look at compare the internet to the human brain, we have far superior deductive powers. And what we need to do is we need to exercise our imagination, our creativity. Mekin came up with a quotation: for every complex question, there is an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong. It's unimaginative. Now, what we're educated to do, we're educated to not make mistakes. So my message to you out there is we've got to search for the right answer, but it doesn't have to be correct. We've got to search for alternatives, solutions. Let's be creative with our solutions or remedies to that situation. So if you look at a child, how creative is a child? And a child, most children don't have any inhibitions about making mistakes and constantly asking the why, what, where, how. So really, what we've got to do, we've almost got to be turn back the clock. We've got to be creative. We've got to be curious. We've got to ask questions, and we've got to wonder why things happen, not in isolation with our workforce and other businesses. Leonardo da Vinci came up with the statement or the quote: all children are born artists. It's how we retain this creativity when we become an adult. As we grow older, we're conditioned. We have to be polite. We have to give the right answer. To make mistakes makes us look fallible. We've got to put that to one side. We're in a whole new arena now where we've got to work together and be prepared to make mistakes, but learn from these mistakes as a community of businesses. We also need crazy ideas. Now, at the time, Newton came up with the law of gravity. Galileo, the solar system, and Tesla invented electricity or harnessed electricity, radio, and X-rays. Now, these individuals at the time were deemed somewhat eccentric, but you need off-the-wall ideas at this particular time if we're going to build innovation for the sustainable future. And there we have a statement there. I have no special talents. I'm only passionate and curious. We need that child mentality, that curiosity, as Einstein said. You've also got the passion and the creativity of Walt Disney, which hopefully most of you have heard of. When you are curious, by the way, curiosity did not kill the cat. Curiosity made the cat have a very entertaining lifespan. So when you are curious, you find lots of interesting things to do. And I guess working from home, we do have to keep curious. That's why we need to interact and network with our co-workers, our competitors, and other businesses in the same sector or other sectors. You've also got Steve Jobs from Apple. Through learning and exploration, one can understand seemingly very complex things about one's environment. So yes, life seemed very complicated at the beginning of the coronavirus. hopefully you're starting to settle down, and then you can start horizon scanning and identify what can you change with the views and ideas of your workforce and the local community. But the key thing is changing habits. How do we change our habits to the way we run our businesses? And I'm pointing the finger here at you CEOs, your business leaders, your directors of businesses, no matter how large or how small. Look to your habits and identify what are your good habits or what are your bad habits. And ask the question, have you done this? And how often do you do it? And how successful is it? So we've all seen people out there who wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they're at the gym, they can network with individuals at the workforce, they're very smartly dressed, they're very successful, and they lead the team. How do they do this? When you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you think, why aren't I like that? Or how close am I to being what I perceive as being successful? So you might think, well, self-control. You might also think about willpower. Now, these are okay for one-off decisions, but you only need to look at the dieting industry, losing weight, how effective that is. So what we've got to think about is willpower does work for one-off short-term solutions, but invariably they will phase out. Think about those in the audience who go to gyms. When you first started going, and how often do you go now? And all the excuses you come up with, the reasons why you don't go there. So what makes people successful? What makes individuals in an organization or a company successful? It's their cognitive appreciation of trying to identify self-analysis. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Now, you can't do this in isolation. You need to speak to your family members, close-knit, your co-workers, and further afield, social networking. What people see as your strengths and weaknesses. You may disagree with them, but if enough people to keep saying it, that's the reality. It might not be you, but the person that you're communicating. So what they do is they block out negative habits. And what they've got is, you've got your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And for a habit to embed itself, it has to move from the conscious to the subconscious. Now, what I mean by subconscious is, have you ever driven in your car on a weekend and started heading towards work? And you think, why am I doing this? Because you're automated. That behavior is automated. Or even driving, you can be in conversation. Yes, subconsciously, you're still aware of the cars, the speed and so forth. But it's this subconscious activity resting with your conscious activity. So changing old habits. And this is what we've got to do as a business. We're in a new arena now. Looking forward, the world will not go back to the way it was before. We've got to think forward, but we've got to come in from a position of strength. And what I'm talking about is we have barriers, resistance, or what we call friction. So if we've got a bad habit and there is no friction, we will continue that bad habit. If we've got a good habit and there is friction, we'll possibly lose that good habit. So what we need to do, we need to look at techniques out there. Uber had a big problem with their turnover of staff. They started off and they were picking up people, yes, earning money, but they were using their own car, strangers were getting in the car, and after about 8 or 9 rides, invariably, they would leave the Uber occupation. So Uber counteracted that, and if you've had an Uber ride, at the end of your ride, just as you're coming to finish your journey, the driver's phone will ping. That's the next route for the driver to pick up, the next pickup. So the temptation is, I'll do another pickup. I'll do another pickup. And another good example is Netflix. When you're watching a box set, at the end of one show, you don't have to do anything. Bottom right-hand screen, the next show will come up in the next 9, 10 seconds. So building habits. So if we repeat an action that are easy and fun, we're more likely to repeat it. The sad reality is most bad habits to get rid of or to embed good habits is difficult, and it takes time. For example, to drink a glass of water on a regular basis, to build that from a conscious action to a subconscious action takes about 2 months. Going to a gym takes about 3 to 4 months. So developing good habits are very difficult, particularly a lot of these good habits at certain times don't seem easy and don't seem fun. So here's an example when I'm talking about changing habits, conditioning. An experiment was conducted whereby they took a group of people into a cinema. Half the people were regular cinema attendees, the others weren't. So what they did do, they gave the audience stale popcorn. Now, the people who went to the cinema, they would eat the popcorn, even though they didn't like it, but they would always eat popcorn at the movies. The people who didn't go to the movies on a regular basis kind of still ate the popcorn, but not all of it. So what they did do, they developed the experiment to a second stage, whereby they asked a different group of regular cinema goers if they were left-handed to use the right hand, if they were right-hand to use the left hand. And because they had to concentrate on eating the popcorn, they looked at the popcorn and said, I don't like this. Why am I eating it? So what we need to do is build in blockers. 9 a day, fruit and vegetables. Quite often we know that is good practice, but a lot of us don't stick to that regime. And quite often it's because it is difficult to access. So another experiment to see how people change habits, they created a conference whereby they put the fruit in the box at the front of the conference. Nobody picked up the fruit. But if you spread the fruit out, so as the delegates were going back to the seats, the ease of developing that habit, they would pick it up quite readily. So when I'm talking about good experiences of changing habits, and business owners, you need to think to your workforce. Dopamine, it's this generation or stimulus of that feel-good factor. So we've got to think about how can we still motivate our workforce to keep them hungry. If we look at a bad habit, smoking, most people know smoking was bad or is bad for you. But the real drop in smoking actually occurred when the governments around the world put in these barriers or these frictions, i.e. stopped advertising, took away cigarette vending machines. So the average cigarette smoker found it very difficult to gain access, and that had a profound effect. Also, think of your workplace about changing habits. Mise en place, it's where a chef arranges their products in front of them when cooking. Ease of use to resourcing. Now, with the social distancing, you will need or continue to think about how can you improve this. Customers entering the building and having a separate exit, so you're not having the same transfer of individuals and possibly generating cross-contamination. And there you have it. So what I'm trying to get with mise en place is arrange your workforce or arrange your lifestyle so you try to blot out these negative habits. So maintaining and living. Now, I know a lot of people, home-based, feel as though that they are simply maintaining the lifestyle. They're not actually living it. Now, look to your business models and give yourselves a score out of 10. Commoditization. What is special about your business? Remember when you bought that first car and you were excited, and how you may feel now. Think about how your consumers first looked at your business on the first year of opening to how they look at it now. Commoditization, give yourselves a score out of 10. And look to see how dependent are you on referrals, your existing client base. How much new business was generated before COVID-19? And what are you doing to generate new business today? Not just you as business owners, but your workforce and working with a community and different business sectors. And how obscure. This goes back to one of my first slides about signage. What does your business signage represent, whether it's online or physical? So curiosity. That is one key message. If you're curious, yes, you'll come up, you'll make mistakes. but at least you'll be experimenting, and sooner or later it will connect, but it won't connect just by yourselves. Two heads are always better than one. So to be curious, you've got to try and visit different places. Now that's difficult at the moment. We've got the social media, but you need to try and change your lifestyles. Ask yourself, were you in a bit of a groove before? Did 1 week blend into 2 weeks, into a month, into several months? Ask questions. And you do this on social media via networking. Don't be shy to ask a silly question. If anything, you're going to get a silly answer back and it'll make it more entertaining, but that is how innovation is created. Books, you've got to read. Journals, newspapers, look out what other businesses are doing. Share that knowledge and try to adopt it. If it doesn't suit, drop it, but keep looking for other opportunities. And I knew I'd get Donald Trump in somewhere. Try to look on individuals in a different light. Try to look at them in a positive perspective. And there's always something you can see positive in everyone, including Donald Trump. Network. Try to introduce yourself to different people, and also put a question to your workforce. Ask them, what other methods can we generate to create additional revenue? And do this on a regular basis. Flip chart it. And to start them off, you use a colored pen, or you put it on social media, or with your company's emails, or Zoom presentations or Skype presentations. Start them off with some examples, and they will add to them. So what you've really got to do, you've got to sell the card of urgency. Now, we're emphasizing that, the egg timer. You're selling urgency. However, ask the question, are you selling anxiety rather than urgency? Be prepared to fail, or epic failure. It is only by learning from failure can we move forward. And be respectful of your workforce. If you're asking them to experiment or come up with ideas, and if it doesn't work out, don't chastise them. Give them the encouragement, rather like a child. Be accountable. Create this feeling within the workforce and ask how effective you're doing it, which most of you will be doing it. How effective does the workforce feel so that they own part of that business? They are responsible. They are accountable. And hold your hand up if you're unsure. Going back to Walt Disney, the first think, second dream, third believe, and finally dare. Like that child or children, be prepared to make mistakes. And going back to my second slide, you will need to create the team dynamic. If you get your workforce on board, committed, engaged, they will come up with ideas. Get them to network with their friends. It isn't through asking. If you don't ask, you're not going to come up with innovative ideas or help put those pieces together. And that concludes my webinar presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very looking forward to answering your questions. And back to you, Co. Co, I think you'll need to put your mic on.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Derek, for the sessions. I believe all of us have benefited from the webinar. I would also like to remind everyone that adjoint certificates will be issued to you by SEGi College Subang Jaya and University of Sunderland. And the link will pop up at the end of the sessions for you to fill out the information for us to issue the certificates for you. Now, let's move on to questions and answers sessions. To those who are watching with us, do type your questions in the comment sections below. We will do our best to answer all of your questions. Okay, we have Wami Katu from University of Sunderland. How do you juxtapose the fundamental issues of ethics and morality and profitability for companies during the crisis? Over to you, Dr. Derek.
Sure. Thank you for that question, Frank. Now, I don't suppose I know all the answers. However, I will answer all these questions. But for me to give advice for every business is somewhat challenging through the webinar. However, organizations need to remember the consumer has a memory. And if they act unethically, they may not feel as though it's being brought to their attention, but your consumers will remember. So at this time, what I've personally seen with working with businesses in the UK, in Europe, and further afield, organizations are being very ethical. There will be a minority that aren't, but the vast majority realize that we're all in the same position. All economies are down, businesses are down, and we need to work together in collaboration. And it's through dialogue, it is through transparency, and some of the business examples I gave you there, whereby organizations are live streaming their production processes, how they manage their staff. It all creates a mental image that the public will remember in the future. And I'm a firm believer, if you do good things will eventually happen to you. It may take time, but if you keep that mantra, I'm sure that will help you. But yes, must maintain ethics and must be honest and fair and cooperative. And I mentioned in my presentation, don't just work with non-competitors. Try to work with competitors, people from different sectors, to share best practice, because it is a learning process. And we want to get out of COVID-19 from a strong footing. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Dr. Derek. We have another question for Kiki. What do you suggest is the best type of style of leaderships for organizational change? Over to you, Dr. Derek.
Well, if I knew this, I think I'd have my own desert island, but I've got a good answer, I feel. Warren Bennis came up with the definition of leadership. And what he said was, leadership is a lot like beauty. Very difficult to define, but you know it when you see it. So there's not one successful style of leadership, because you're dealing with different people whose personalities, behaviors change. So it's almost like a pendulum. Vertical is the perfect style of leadership. And what we try to do is get that most effective style of leadership as close to the most optimum level. You'll never quite get it, but if you maintain communication, you listen to your workforce, you ask yourself open questions. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my habits, good habits, bad habits? And share this through dialogue or virtual training sessions with your workforce. Don't hide the fact we're all human. We all have weaknesses, but we equally so. We all have strengths and we all have suggestions. Thank you, Co.
Thanks, Dr. Derek. Okay, another question for Lollipop Boom. Hi, Dr. Derek. I'm from a swimming industry. What would be your advice to move forward since social distancing will be a new norm? Normal lessons can no longer be conducted. Over to you, Dr. Derek.
Yes, well, I can certainly relate to this because my two children, their swimming classes have stopped and I can't wait for them to get back. Safety must come first. But I think you'll also realise those in the swimming sector or leisure sector, even before COVID-19, people didn't keep good hygiene. For example, how many people actually showered before they actually went into the pool or showered when they came out of the pool? So I guess it'll be on a numbers game. It'll be heavily regulated, but it'll be a slow transition. And I think, and what I'm selling to my children is the virus is still out there. We need to follow government guidelines. And these guidelines will indicate what is permissible, what is not permissible. Even when we get those guidelines, I think there'll be a certain level of apprehension. So I think the uptake of swimming will be slow. And you might have to look at your business hours. You might have to restrict the number of people that can swim in lanes. You might have to monitor the hygiene on entering and exiting the pool as well. And also kiddies getting into the pool, making sure that, you know, the water is maintained hygienically, which you'll know where I'm getting at.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Derek. Another question for Deva Marla. What is the main reasons for some businesses' incapabilities of sustenance during this pandemic? Over to you, Dr. Derek.
Now, it's easy to point the finger to businesses. Oh, you haven't planned. You need to plan. And it's something that we can always improve. A lot of businesses have been caught. No one expected, certainly I did not expect the pandemic to hit the UK the way it did. Other professionals, other government members possibly had that scenario, but from my point of view, I didn't. So it was a culture shock for me. And working with businesses, it was equally a culture shock because a lot of businesses work on a short cash flow. So if they're not getting that cash coming in, they quickly run out of that cash flow. So their suppliers, the supply chain, they need their money to survive. And quite often, sadly, a lot of businesses have gone under and still going under. And it goes back to my opening slides. It's not just the SMEs, it's the big multinational organizations, which shows you how tight their cash flows are within that. What I can say is, organizations, if you have gone out of business, my heart goes out to you. Things will eventually change. And it's a case of that slide getting out the hole, possibly change your line of business, start off small, but nothing beats planning and listening to your workforce. So I can't come up with a strategy myself. I've got to work with my team. I've got to go to outside networks, get as much information or as many colors as I can get to create that picture. And even then, once you start your business, that plan is out of date. So a plan needs to be organic, but there is no easy solution. And I'd be very false if I try to communicate that.
Thank you, Dr. Derek. Okay, we have George here. My question is, will the effect of pandemics change anything from the way we usually learn or receive lectures?
Yes, things are changing. Things are changing. And I think in education, they are actually changing for the better. This has pushed education into the use of technology. And myself have regular Skypes, WhatsApp meetings before COVID-19. But I know that a lot of other universities in general are making this as a learning curve. A lot of lectures will now go online. However, as long as the lectures have good support systems, good communications with staff and students, and student to student, we can continue the learning dynamic. But what we need to build in is this human interfacing, this connectivity, whereby individuals are learning from other individuals. Yes, this can be done in a virtual classroom. And I'm certainly pleased with SEGi and the University of Sunderland. We're getting a lot of programs online, a lot of investment, a lot of training, and the feedback from students in the main is very, very positive. But it's a learning process, but it's having that changing mindset. Things have got to change. And to a certain extent, I'm finding it quite efficient doing Zoom sessions to different T&E centres around the world and with my co-workers at the University of Sunderland.
Thank you, Dr. Derek. We have Shaki. How to improve teams' communications in the current situations? Over to you, Dr. Derek.
Yeah, well, you need a lot of communication, but you need a lot of effective communication. And it's no use just me communicating to you guys out there. I have to listen. I have to respond to what you're saying. And I have to be sensitive that everyone has an opinion. And don't look with an organization that the smartest people are at the top. From my experience is, if you were to turn an organization upside down, you get some great ideas from traditionally the bottom end of the organizational structure. So don't look at people because they wear a uniform that haven't got an opinion. What we need to do is we need to develop a communications strategy, a plan. How are we going to communicate? This cannot be rigid. This cannot be fixed. It has to be agile and organic, because our businesses, our way of businesses is changing all the time. And if we don't keep changing, people will rely on the informal line of communication, the hearsay, the gossip. So what we need to do is be ahead of that curve. We need to constantly evolve. And when we're having meetings, one thing I recommend all businesses do, if you're having a business meeting, virtual or physical meeting, no matter what the meeting is about, everyone in that meeting needs to come up before the meeting to think about a suggestion of how to improve the business. It could be quality of food, it could be the layout. It doesn't have to be specifically to that specific meeting, but start to look at your business almost like entrepreneurs and think, right, how can we be better? How can we be more agile? How can we have a happier, a more accountable, a more progressive organization within that?
Thank you, Dr. Derek. Okay, we have Rosalind here. Dr. Derek, you mentioned about changing in habits during this critical time. What is your best advice to encourage our colleagues to change their habits and to discover their potentials? Over to you, Dr. Derek.
Right. Before I answer this, I must confess I do have some bad habits, but I'm working on them. So what I would suggest is start from the basics. Do a list, like a balance sheet, debit, credit. But instead of debit, credit, put down what you like about yourself, what you don't like about yourself, and write that list. Invariably, what you don't like about yourself is way longer than what you like about yourself. Keep that private. Ask your partner, look, tell me what you like about me or dislike about me. Do it with your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles, co-workers, other friends which you may not regularly see. Collate that information in and lie it out in front of you, as I said in the lecture. And if you see something which you disagree, but enough people to keep seeing it, and it's a bad habit, it may not be you, but the person that you're communicating. That has got to be a habit that you've got to try and change. So what you've got to try and do is change your lifestyle. Take away the barriers. If you want to develop a good habit. If you've got a bad habit that you want to get rid of, build in barriers. So for example, at Christmas, I woke up early one morning to go to the gym, and there was some frost on the screen. And I thought, oh, I'll not go to the gym today because there's frosting on my glass and it'll take too long to scrape off. I then felt guilty and said, no, I'm going to get rid of that frost and I'm going to the gym. So if you want to get rid of bad habits, build in barriers, blockers, rather like cigarettes. You know, they took away the advertising, the vending machines, put barriers in front of you. I'll give you one example that I do. I quite like chocolate. And there's a drawer in my kitchen, which my wife puts the kids' chocolate there. I've put a posted pad note on there, don't steal the children's chocolates. And believe me or not, that has stopped me eating their chocolate.
Thank you, Dr. Derek.
Okay, thank you.
That's the last of our questions today. On behalf of all our participants here, I would like to thank Dr. Derek for your sharing sessions.
Thank you, Cole.
If you would like to have another sessions from Dr. Derek, please type 1. To all participants who have an upcoming webinar titled Broken English, Common Mistakes You Must Avoid. that will be happening on 5th of May. Our speakers will share with you on the common mistakes in English and how you should avoid these mistakes. If you are interested, please scan or go to this link now to register. If you do not want to miss any of our upcoming sessions, you can also subscribe with us by joining our Telegram group. Please scan or go to the links below now to join the groups. Before we end today's sessions, as promised, certificates will be issued to the participants. Please go to the links and fill in your particulars. The certificate shall be sent to you via emails within 30 days from now. To my colleagues in SEGi, you can also go into the same links for your certificates. We have come to the end of today's sessions. On behalf of SEGi Group of Colleges, I thank all of you for joining our SGC webinars today. Stay connected and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.